In this short video, I'm going to talk about voter disenfranchisement in the United States. So what you need to know about voting in the United States is that American citizens have a fundamental right to vote, but there are certain qualifications on that right to vote, including you have to be over 18, you have to be a resident of the jurisdiction in which you want to vote, and in some cases, ex-felons have constraints on whether they can vote at all. That right to vote is not unlimited because under the Constitution, states have the power, authority, and responsibility to run elections with very little federal oversight, either with other constitutional requirements or with laws that have national application for how elections must be conducted. That means in states that are controlled by different parties may have different voting regimes. If they tend to be that if Democrats control the state legislature, they try to write laws that enfranchise and encourage people to vote. So they do things like early voting days. Democrats try to expand the franchise because they believe that they benefit when more people are able to vote, including seniors, low-income residents, people who live in apartment complexes, who are from minority backgrounds or from recent naturalized citizens. So they would tend to favor laws that do things like have early voting in the several weeks before election day, that would have very liberal vote by mail policies so that it's easy for working class individuals who can't necessarily take the day off in order to go vote to ensure that their vote is cast in the weeks prior to the election. They might do things like have many more precincts and staff them better so that people can get in and out pretty quickly. They might have same-day voter registration so that if you didn't really become aware of the election until the week or two prior to the election, when there's a lot of discussion of the campaigns and the candidates going on, you would still have the opportunity to participate. Republicans, on the other hand, often believe that they benefit from limiting the franchise, and their voting base tends to be older homeowners, whiter, and so they might have laws such as restrictive voter identification laws that are easy for people who have driver's licenses and cars to meet, while a very large percentage of lower income inner city urban dwelling residents don't have cars, therefore don't have driver's licenses, therefore don't have the kind of identification that you need to be able to vote. Republicans also do such things as limit early voting, make it harder to vote absentee unless you have a bona fide reason why you can't vote in person. Sometimes will move polling locations from one election to the next, so people don't know where to go regularly to cast their vote, have fewer voting locations in urban areas so that the lines are long, people get frustrated, have to get to work, and they might leave without casting a vote. All of those kinds of efforts are disenfranchising to the extent that what they mean is that there are a great number of people who don't have the opportunity to participate who should be able to participate. The issue of voting suppression is different from the issue of disenfranchisement. Suppression is actually people who interfere with a voter's ability to cast their vote, and sometimes, sometimes that is done by people in government. However, if a government official does that, they're subject to federal criminal law for depriving a citizen of the right to vote. But private individuals sometimes take it in their own hands, and even local small campaigns take it into their own hands to do things like post armed guards at voter polling stations with signs that say things like, "If you vote illegally, you'll be in prison for up to 10 years," or something like that. Illegal immigrants may not vote here, and put those in polling places where there are lots of immigrant and lower income and voters and people of color voting. And that can be very scary. That can cause someone to say, I just don't want any problems. Maybe a family member or someone in their household is undocumented, and they might be afraid that if they cast a vote, somehow this will come back and harm that person's interests. Or they're just frightened by large, burly people holding weapons and don't want to be around that kind of situation, which portends the possibility of violence or someone attacking to you. That's voter suppression. That's illegal. It's illegal under state law. It can be legal under federal law. But what people have to do if they encounter those kinds of situations is, first of all, whip out the cell phone and start taping it so you have evidence of what happened. Send that to the press. Send that to the local party voter protection hotline where they can send it to the police. One of all of those groups is going to make sure that someone responds, the police responds, and removes those people from the presence, or that they get a court order to order those people to depart, or that the whistle is blown on this kind of activity, which is so damaging to our democracy that it puts whatever candidate or party sponsored it under a very bad light. So those are some of the issues around disenfranchisement and voter suppression. And the last thing to say about this subject is that there's a tension between what states need to do in order to be able to run free and fair elections. That is, they have to have some regulations about how election would work. And the Supreme Court and the courts have been lenient in permitting state laws that can be disenfranchising in place under a reasonable standard. That is, that the state can reasonably worry about things like the integrity of the election or confusion of voters with too many names on the ballot, or the need to cut off voter registration in order to be able to print voter rolls in order to conduct the election, to be able to do things like purge the voter rolls of people who haven't voted in a good period of time. And so all of those laws can have impacts on the ability of individuals to vote. So voter disenfranchisement done often at the hands of the state, voter suppression done sometimes by candidates or by individuals trying to intimidate others to keep others from voting. Both really weaken our democracy. The best antidote to them is make a plan and vote early. Vote early by mail so that you don't have to confront anyone at the polls, whether it be long lines, poll workers who can't verify your eligibility to vote, or someone trying to intimidate you, but participate. People are only trying to take away your right to vote because they gain something by it, because it's precious, because the ability to write laws that benefit you are being impaired. It must be someone else's interest that they're trying to write the laws to benefit. So be sure to vote.